Hello there and welcome to another episode of World of Tanks and Gainey Titan. Once again, controversy rears its head in the World of Tanks console world, this time triggered off by Quickybaby, who has reviewed recently, over the weekend, two tanks from the Valkyria Chronicles that are available on the Asian server in World of Tanks. They're completely fictional. They're based off a game done by Sega, based off a fictional pseudo-European war that occurs in the equivalent of the 1930s, effectively, in a kind of a fictional pseudo-Europe. The Nameless and the Edelweiss, and the problem is that he has called the Nameless overpowered and play to win. At least it's a different trigger than the last time, where it was Sir Foch complaining about the Chrysler K, making a similar complaint but doing it in the manner of basically telling Wargame to F off for about 3 minutes solid, or something along those lines. I actually watched the video, but I didn't really time the stuff. That said, is the tank overpowered? Well, yeah, from Quickybaby's review, it's definitely overpowered. It's essentially a heavy tank with medium tank gun handling, superior mobility for heavy tanks, and heavy tank gun alpha. It has the alpha basically of 105mm gun, and the handling of a medium gun, like it is effectively an 88mm gun. However, is it pay to win? I'm not too sure about that. What it is definite escalation. It's definitely a power creep issue, which I think is not exactly the same thing as pay to win. Should it be in World of Tanks? That's a slightly different question. I was certainly attracted to World of Tanks by the fact that it was historical tanks, and I was actually initially curious as to how they handled the British tanks, because British armoured warfare doctrine, insofar as it could be referred to in World War World War Two, was weird, if anything else. The British had worked out how to do armoured warfare more or less properly. Literally wrote the book on it, and then the book was used most effectively by the Germans. To a lesser extent, the Russians took quite a bit of stuff from the British playbook, and the Americans did as well. And the British more or less ignored it for reasons that have to do more with the economics and social structure of British society and the British Army than it is to do with anything about the practicalities of warfare. However, that's neither here nor there. So I could definitely see the tanks based on completely fictional game environments and anime franchises could be off-putting to quite a lot of people. It changes the nature of World of Tanks from something that is semi-historical to something that is essentially fantasy, and there's an argument for having a World of Tanks fantasy type game, but maybe as a separate thing, say like World of Warcraft, World of Warplanes, or World of Warships, is separate franchises. And I mean, there could be a World of Tanks based around different fantasy tank environments, in which case the entirety of the Valkyria Chronicles could be included as entirely fictional universe tech tree, and while they're at it, maybe they could do MechWarrior and Warhammer 40k and lots of other places like that have armoured battle wagons and various types. Actually, I'd be quite interested in their take in MechWarrior. Anyway, to get back to the thing, play to win. My view is that the game is play to win. Play to win is built into the DNA of this game. I think the use of premium ammunition is essentially a play to win mechanic, and in that if you use premium ammunition exclusively, you're going to have to spend money. You're going to have to spend real money either buying premium time, in which case you're probably very, very good as well, or you're going to actually have to buy silver and spend real money doing it. I've come across at least one character in the forums who has claimed to have done just that over a period of several years, where they were spending upwards of $50 a week on the game, essentially buying silver to buy premium, and then shooting premium out the barrels of their various tanks. And yeah, that will definitely improve your output, because for a given skill level, if you have, I don't know, say a 60% hit rate, and you penetrate, say, 70 or 80%, say 80% of those shots. So you fire 10 shots, you hit with 6, you penetrate with 4. Normally, you probably will penetrate with 5 at least, maybe even 6 with the premium, because you're less likely to bounce, or you'll bounce a lot fewer shots. So your damage output will go up. Premium time is also a kind of a pay-to-win aspect, I think, because this game is built around frustrating the player. The grinds are long, and they're very grindy, particularly stock grinds, and they encourage you to buy premium time. And premium time is actually a huge reward. I've spent the first 2 years of this game playing this game without using premium time. And one of the things that I noticed is that when I started buying premium time, which I did last November, within about 2 months I'd built up 10 million in silver, and but I also accumulated somewhere north of 30,000 free convertible XP. So you're earning twice as much silver, maybe 3 times as much silver. You're earning third more experience, so that your grind is reduced by that much, and you're also earning vast amounts of convertible XP, which means you can skip whole portions of grinds in the game. So I think that's the principal pay to win, and it's built into the DNA of the game, and it's one of the problems the game has, I think, from an esports perspective. It's really balanced around the use of premium rounds. Now, is the Nameless overpowered? Yes, I would think so. Certainly on paper, from what it appears to be on the Asian server, it is significantly overpowered, and large amounts of tanks of that nature and that scale would render tanks like the IS-6 obsolete completely. It would also make the stock grinds, I think, intolerable, and this is the biggest danger that this thing represents. Well, aside from the off-putting of people by having tanks with no basis on history at all, not even a designer's concept. Having tanks that are significantly more powerful than anything else is going to lead to subsequent premium tanks probably being more powerful again. And the funny thing about the Nameless is, while the Nameless is significantly overpowered, the other tank, the Edelweiss, that's accompanying with on the Asian server, is actually, it's okay. I mean, it's a decent tank, but it's not anything special. It's it would be a good solid contender, but it just strikes me as fairly average for premium tanks. It doesn't seem to me to be outstanding in any particular way. But the Nameless is definitely very strongly armoured, and it's the combination of the armour, the mobility, the alpha, and the gun handling would make it significantly overpowered, and a continuous use of tanks of that nature will, I think, cause this game to rapidly deteriorate, because the standard stock grinds on the Tech 3, if there's quite a lot of these kind of tanks floating around, say in a couple of years' time or a year's time, whatever, could become intolerable even for people with premium accounts, because the at-tier stock guns are just not going to be competitive. They're not going to penetrate the frontal armour of a tank like the Nameless, and it's a really bad move from that point of view. I don't think pay to win is fair in the sense that I think, like I said, I think the game is pretty much pay to win anyway. And I think other tanks that they've brought out aren't necessarily that particularly overpowered. I don't know about the Chrysler K. Definitely, again, on paper, that seems to be a fairly powerful tank. But even the Chrysler K, from what I've seen of the stats of it on paper, isn't as strong as at tier as the Nameless, because the Chrysler K, as far as I remember, had a pretty poor gun. And the side armor, I think of it, as far as I remember, wasn't all that great. It was fairly flat. This thing will have fairly strong side armor, very strong frontal armor, and superb gun handling. It is significantly more powerful. And a trend of tanks of that nature, like I said, would very rapidly make the game not fun to play. Aside from whether or not it's a move that should be taken, I think it's a very risky move. I think Wargaming are risking alienating an awful lot of their fans by bringing on tanks that are completely fantasy. I hope Sega's paying them a lot of money to do it. And I think they should probably be a little more upfront about why and how they're doing these things and what exactly their strategy is with this kind of stuff. Otherwise, like I said, I think they risk turning away a lot of their player base. And I think Wargaming are particularly dependent on their player base. I think this is a very hard game to get into. And from what I can make out, very few people make it past Tier 1. And even the drop off, I'd say, at Tier 5 seems to be quite huge. So I'm not sure about Wargaming's ability to get new blood into the game, so to speak. I don't know if this is a move that would do it, because if you're new to the game, if you're a fan of the Valkyria Chronicles and you've played this game, you go in, you're buying a tier 8 tank, you're going to get absolutely hosed. You have no experience in the game, you don't understand the mechanics. The mechanics of this game are really opaque and impossible to derive, I think, from just play. There's nothing in the game that really tells you how armor penetration works, how angling the armor works, how it helps, overmatching mechanics. Camouflage is a complete mystery to anybody who hasn't researched the stuff outside of the game. You have to really go onto YouTube, learn from the players, and then you find that when you master the basic mechanics of the game, you're only an apprentice, really. You're only beginning to be competent in the game. There's a whole new metagame then that you have to understand, which is essentially the psychology of the other 29 people on the map and how they're going to react in any given situation, allies and enemies, so that you can actually do something useful to achieve your goal, which is the victory of your team, and to you to do well in terms of experience and your standing at the end of the result screen at the end of the battle. And none of this stuff is explained in game. Maybe there are better attempts than when I joined up 3 years ago. I believe that there are more tutorials, but I think this game probably needs some kind of campaign mode just to get people up to speed on the mechanics. Some kind of solo player campaign mode that really explains, takes people through the various mechanical mastery of the game. It also probably needs some good play versus environment, so as people get used to some of the, again, the basics. Armor angling, camouflage, scouting, and that kind of stuff. Mission orientated stuff. So that is the end of my rant. I suppose there's no point in having a YouTube channel unless you can rant on it every now and again. And vent some of the stuff that's been bothering you. Thank you to those that have listened thus far. I hope you found it interesting, and if not, you can just mute the sound and watch the video in the background. The game actually wasn't too bad. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you again soon.